Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American horror thriller film from 2026, titled Chum. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. The movie begins with a ship sailing across the Mediterranean Sea, accompanied by a voiceover from a bitter man who recounts how his wife, Nikki, was attacked and killed by a shark. According to his narration, he and Nikki had visited the sea to spend some quality time together. At one point, he stepped away to get more wine while Nikki decided to go for a swim. However, something seemed unusual in the water, and moments later, she was attacked by a great white shark. When the man returned, he could not find Nikki and noticed blood in the water. He immediately jumped in and discovered her lifeless body. In the opening scene, a news report reveals that, due to climate change, fish are migrating into new territories. The scene then shifts to a wedding celebration, where a successful businessman delivers a heartfelt speech for his daughter, Tina, who is marrying Tom. The couple's friends, Brittany, Rakinda, and Rick, are also present, along with Tina's sister, Sadie. After the farewell speech, the newlyweds pose for photographs, and it becomes apparent that there is some tension between them. Later, while Tina and her father are sharing a dance, he notices that she seems slightly troubled, but Tina brushes off his concerns. He then presents her with a gift, a wristband engraved with the words, "Never give up on love." Meanwhile, Tom is seen lying on the beach, apparently drunk, and when he returns, Tina attempts to talk to him about his drinking problem, but he ignores her. Shortly afterward, Rakinda and Rick arrive and tell the couple that they have a surprise for them, and Tom asks them to give them some time to change. When they rejoin their friends, Brittany and Sadie are also present, and Rick finally reveals the surprise. He has arranged a Mediterranean yacht excursion, allowing all of them to sail across the sea and have fun together for 3 hours. However, Tina and Tom are not interested and tell the others to go without them, with Tina explaining that she cannot swim. The group continues to persuade them, and Rick reminds them that it is a gift, and after some encouragement from everyone, the couple eventually agrees to join. Once aboard the yacht, they are introduced to Captain Mackey, their personal sailor, who will be taking them around the Mediterranean. When Brittany asks whether there are sharks in the area, Mackey assures them that they are not before setting sail. As the others drink and enjoy themselves, Tina and Tom remain distant from one another, clearly avoiding each other. Later, the group decides to go for a swim, with Tom joining them this time, while Tina stays on the yacht and watches everyone having fun. After everyone returns to the boat, Tina approaches Tom and asks whether this is how their marriage is going to be and whether he has already given up on them. Tom tells her that he still loves her, but because they have different views on certain things, he needs some time to think. Tina later goes to speak with Rakinda, who is making out with Rick, and Sadie soon joins them. Tina reveals that she and Tom are planning to get an annulment, shocking her friends. The reason for the tension between the newlyweds is that Tina has been offered a partnership at an oil company, something she worked hard to achieve. However, Tom has spent his entire life campaigning against the industry. Sadie remarks that it is probably for the best, as she believes Tom is not the right man for Tina. Rick overhears the conversation and later shares the news with Brittany, much to Tina's displeasure. Just then, something strikes the yacht, causing it to shake, and Captain Mackey assures everyone that they have merely hit a rock. Meanwhile, Brittany, who is interested in Tom, approaches him to keep him company, but Tom politely declines, saying that he just needs some time alone. Unbeknownst to the group, a great white shark has been following the yacht. It strikes the vessel again, causing the anchor to fall into the water. As Captain Mackey and Tom attempt to pull it back up, Mackey accidentally falls overboard. The others quickly become aware of the situation, and as they try to pull him to safety, the shark attacks him. Despite fighting back, Mackey loses one of his arms before the group manages to rescue him. Tom immediately tries to stop the bleeding, while Tina rushes to use the radio to call for help, only to discover that the cable has been severed. She also finds that there is no signal on her phone. Having lost a great deal of blood from his amputated arm, Captain Mackey eventually dies. Brittany later finds a hand flare in the yacht's storage compartment, but before she can fire it, the shark strikes the vessel again, causing the flare to fall back into the storage area. During the chaos, Tina falls into the water, and Tom jumps in after her since she cannot swim. As the shark approaches them, another sailor suddenly appears and drives it away using a gig gun. He then helps Tom and Tina aboard his vessel. At the same time, the hand flare accidentally ignites inside the yacht's storage compartment, starting a fire and throwing the remaining friends into a panic. Following Tom and Tina's urging, the others jump into the water and swim to the other boat, where the sailor helps them aboard. As they move away, the burning yacht suddenly explodes, and the shark devours Captain Mackey's body. With everyone now safe, Tina tells the sailor where they are staying and asks if he can take them there. However, he refuses, explaining that a storm is approaching from that direction. Instead, he says he is heading south, where there is a port that can take them back to their resort. Relieved, the group agrees, and the sailor informs them that he will contact the Coast Guard about the accident. Later, while discussing the situation among themselves, Tina finds it strange that the sailor appeared out of nowhere and suspects that something is not right. Rakinda, however, tells her that they are simply fortunate to have been rescued, and they then notice a large fishing cage on the boat. Moments later, the sailor returns with drinks and bread, which he offers to the group, and introduces himself as Roy. Later that night, Tina thanks Tom for saving her earlier in the water, and Tom tells her that he still loves her despite their impending divorce. Tina says that they can still work things out, but Tom admits that ever since she accepted the partnership at the oil company, he has felt as though he is losing her to her ambitions. Tina, on the other hand, explains that she does not want to place the entire burden of providing for the family on him. Their differing views soon lead to a brief argument, after which Tom walks away. Roy, who has overheard their conversation, approaches Tina and asks if everything is all right. However, Tina, saying that she does not know him well enough, chooses not to say much. Roy tells her that it is fine and shares how his wife died at sea. He reassures Tina that she and Tom will eventually reconcile. It is then revealed that Roy is the same man seen at the beginning of the movie, whose wife, Nikki, was killed by the shark. Meanwhile, growing impatient that they had not yet reached the port, Rick confronts Roy about the delay. Roy tells him to stop complaining and orders him to sit back down. Moments later, everyone begins to feel strange, and one by one, the friends lose consciousness. It is revealed that Roy had drugged the drinks he offered them earlier. The following day, Tina wakes up to find herself and the others tied up, while Brittany has been placed inside the fishing cage. When Brittany regains consciousness, she immediately begins to panic. Roy takes a knife and slashes her skin, allowing her blood to drip into the water and attract the shark. He then lowers Brittany into the sea and prepares his gig gun to shoot the predator, but repeatedly misses, and the shark eventually swims away. Roy briefly pulls Brittany back to the surface before submerging her again to use her as bait, and once more, he fails to hit his target. Brittany manages to free herself from the cage and swims to the surface, but just as she is about to climb back onto the boat, she is attacked and killed by the shark, leaving her friends horrified and devastated. Showing no remorse for her death, the psychotic Roy turns to the remaining captives and coldly asks, who's next. Suddenly, Rakinda begins to experience an allergic reaction to the substance Roy had put in their drinks. Tina offers to help her, warning that she may die otherwise. Seeing that Rakinda is close to death, Roy decides to use her as his next shark bait. This angers Tina, and she insults him, drawing his attention toward her. Roy insists that the cage is a safe place and claims Brittany would not have died if she had stayed inside it. He tells them they will survive only if they obey his instructions, and Tom questions why he is doing all of this, and Roy explains that it is revenge. He then recounts how a shark killed his wife, Nikki, during a vacation, and since then, he has spent his life at sea trying to hunt down the shark, but has consistently failed. He reveals that he has previously used various animals as bait in an attempt to kill the shark, but none of his efforts worked, leading him to resort to using humans instead. Tina asks why he chose them, and Roy replies that they made themselves available, explaining that he found them stranded at sea and in need of help, which he saw as an opportunity. When Tina calls him weak, Roy becomes irritated and prepares to place her inside the cage. At that moment, they notice a Coast Guard boat approaching, but despite this, Roy quickly formulates a plan. He covers the remaining friends and gives Tina a shirt, instructing her to act normally, or he will kill her sister with the gig gun. When the Coast Guard arrives, one of the officers asks if they have seen a boat carrying 6 friends and a captain. Tina denies it, claiming they are the only ones there. However, the officers notice Brittany's severely injured hand. Before anything else can happen, Roy shoots and kills one of the officers with the gig gun. The other officer attempts to arrest him, but Roy knocks him into the water, where he is attacked and killed by the shark. Taking advantage of the chaos, Rick lunges at Roy, but is shot in the chest with the gig gun and injured. Tom also tries to attack, but Roy overpowers him and throws him into the water, leaving Tina devastated as she believes the shark will kill him. Roy tells the devastated Tina to sit down before restraining her with a zip tie, and Rick tries to reason with Roy, suggesting they could work together to kill the shark, but this only angers Roy. He threatens Rick with a butcher's knife and orders him to stay quiet. Tina, overwhelmed by Tom's death, loses the will to live. However, Sadie comforts her, encouraging her not to give up and assuring her that she still believes in her. After locating the shark, Roy prepares to use Rakinda as his next bait, but Tina intervenes to stop him. While Roy is distracted, Rakinda jumps into the water in an attempt to reach the Coast Guard boat. As the shark begins to approach her, Roy draws a gun and fires repeatedly at it, but he misses every shot. In an attempt to end it quickly, he steers the boat toward Rakinda's direction, and she is killed by the boat's propeller. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Tom is still alive, and after spotting the Coast Guard boat, he frees himself from his restraints and manages to swim toward it. Looking at the bracelet given to her by her father, Tina begins to form a plan. Taking advantage of Roy's distraction, she asks Sadie to retrieve the butcher knife. Sadie succeeds, and together they use it to cut through their restraints. Tina then attacks Roy violently, but he proves too strong for her. Rick, who has also been freed by Sadie, joins the struggle, but he is attacked and killed by the shark, leaving the women horrified. On the guard's boat, Tom uses the radio to call for help before they approach Roy's yacht. Meanwhile, Roy puts Tina inside the cage to use her as bait for the shark and submerges her into the water. With his gig gun ready, he waits for the shark, which violently attacks the cage, causing the supporting rope to snap and Tina to begin sinking. Sadie makes a comment that angers Roy, so he grabs her and throws her into the water to lure the shark. However, she manages to swim and climb back onto the boat before the shark can reach her. At the same time, Tina manages to escape from the cage, but due to her inability to swim properly, she begins to drown. Before she can die, Tom rushes to rescue her, providing her with oxygen and helping her swim to the surface. Tina eventually gets back onto the boat, and before the shark can attack Tom, Tina grabs a knife and stabs it, and Roy finishes it off by shooting it with the gig gun. Tom, Tina, and Sadie are now together, and with his desire for revenge seemingly fulfilled, Roy picks up a butcher knife and turns toward the group. However, the trio quickly overpower him and tie him up. However, the shark, still alive, then strikes the boat, creating a distraction that allows Roy to briefly hold them at gunpoint again. Tina refuses to give up and strikes a gas canister, which hits Roy and causes him to fall into the water. The group watches as Roy is left in the sea, where he is finally attacked and killed by the shark. With the horror finally over, Tina and Tom agree to set aside their differences and work on rebuilding their marriage. They are eventually rescued by another Coast Guard team, and it is also implied that Roy's spirit has reunited with Nikki. The film concludes with a news report covering the recent shark attack, along with updates on the survivors of the tragic incident. Okay guys, that's all the recap about Chum from 2026. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.